This podcast is for general information only. It is not intended as a substitute for general healthcare services. If you have medical conditions, you need to see your doctor. Use of this information is at the user's own risk. Welcome to FitRx with Dr. Greg Dennis. Join me as we challenge the standard sick model of healthcare. This is your source for everything health, wellness, prevention, fitness, biohacking, and more. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of FitRx. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Dennis. I'm very excited today to hear from my guest. If you listen to my podcast, I have a lot of doctors on and different specialists. My guest today is not a doctor. She was more on the patient side who got very sick, and I'll let her tell her story. And she tried some, more conventional medicine and then kind of started looking outside the box to some more alternative medicine and end up, kind of finding ways to heal herself and decided to kind of share her knowledge and her story in a book that she wrote. And the book is called The Vitality Solution. And it's actually not even out yet, but it's getting ready to be released. And so we're just going to hear about her story and talk about what is in the book. And so my guest is Carey Mencarini. Miss Carey, I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dennis. I appreciate the time and interest in a book that's not even out yet. So my story goes, I was in a wheelchair and on oxygen, given 6 months to live, had tried numerous Western medicine avenues, Mayo Clinic, gone to very well-respected doctors, and was eventually diagnosed with the nonspecific ALS at 44 years old and told there was nothing else that could be done. I was in the prime of my amazing life. I had two young boys, a wonderful husband, and dying was not an option. Up to that point, I felt I had tried everything, but then when I looked kind of at other alternatives, I realized there were a lot of different tools out there that I could also engage, and finally discovered what I call the Vitality Solution. And that's really a collective group of alternative resources that now has become my mission to share with others, that they may not be aware of. And maybe they need a little hope, and they've been told, sorry, there's nothing else that could be done.
Hmm.
Which is pretty much a pivotal moment, I think, for anybody when you
Yeah.
hear those words from a doctor you respect. And
Well, let me ask you this. It sounds like you're kind of on the other end of it now, but looking back, what was your health status? I mean, you said you were in the prime of your life age-wise, but would you have
right.
considered yourself pretty healthy?
Yes, we were a hiking, biking, Whole Foods
Hmm.
based kind of family. We were very healthy.
Okay.
We were always on the go and active, and this kind of hit me out of nowhere, but it was like one thing after the other after the other. You're diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and then they give you another diagnosis. They kind of pile on each other
Hmm.
sometimes, and then they change their mind. So
Hmm.
I was in the prime of my life, happy, running, kids around, and the typical driven personality, type A personality. So,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
yeah,
So you get this pretty terrible diagnosis in, ALS or, something like ALS, which is a terminal illness that they don't really have a cure. And it's an actual terrible way to go. I was small, don't really remember, but I know that my grandmother actually died of ALS.
yeah,
And so just, hearing my parents talk about it, is awful. So you have this
yeah,
diagnosis and you're already pretty healthy. And so you start trying to figure out maybe what else you can do. So I guess walk us through that. What were maybe some of the first things, and then beyond that, just kind of walk us through what happened.
Sure, sure. So basically, at that point, I was having trouble swallowing. I didn't absorb food or absorb nutrition from food I ate. And so I knew I needed to stay alive somehow. Like all my muscles were shutting down, and I was basically just existing. And when I kind of look at it, hydration and nutrition are two very basic things every cell needs to thrive and function, and I just pared it down to the most basic elements that everybody needs. And so I started doing IV nutrient therapy and hydration to keep my brain as functional as possible because I wasn't deriving any nutrients from anything that I was getting. I was constantly choking and going into seizures because my cells didn't have what they needed to function. So that's where I started, basically, which is why I'm where I'm at now, having an IV vitamin therapy business and just trying to get people the resources at the most basic level. And then, from there, I added other alternatives.
Okay. So at the time, you sounds like you were doing that out of necessity because I mean you couldn't
Absolutely.
do anything else. Uh, do you remember what you started with? I mean, I've done just in my practice a little bit of IV nutrition. I don't do a lot of it, but there's a lot of different, you know, options out there. Do you remember what you were doing, and then how often were you doing those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was doing like a Myers cocktail,
Yep. Yep.
so an immunity kind of bag,
Okay.
high dose C, a liter of fluid 4 times a week. At the time, I had a chest port, just to back up a
Okay.
little bit. I had a
Okay.
chest port because during the course of my failing health, was also diagnosed with Lyme disease and for co-infection. So we were trying to treat that, but meanwhile, all my muscles were shutting down for unknown reasons. So I was able to do hydration at home, but I would go to a clinic and get a Myers bag, glutathione, uh, drips as well,
Okay.
and NAD. We added NAD
Oh, okay.
slowly. So I was doing that 3 to 4 times a week
Wow.
for many months.
And did I hear you say, were you adding some high dose IV vitamin C? I mean, there's a little bit in
Yes,
Myers, but it's not. So you were doing
not
that in
enough.
addition
Yeah,
to, yeah, you were doing that in
right.
addition to all this other stuff. So that
Exactly.
probably got pretty expensive. That's the
Yeah,
first place my
very
mind went.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of what drove me to trying to bring a resource like Ivy Lounge to our local area where people could walk in. When I went, I had a doctor's visit, then I had all the treatments, and it was just under $1,000 every trip. And I thought, well, what if somebody just needed to, what if they couldn't afford that, long consultation and medical plan and doctor visit? Is there a way to get them access to something that could just keep them alive,
Hmm.
basically? And that's how my business model came to
Hmm.
be. But
Interesting. Okay. So you started doing this again out of necessity,
right.
and did you start to notice a turnaround in some things, or what happened after that?
Absolutely. I had more clarity so I could think a little clearer, getting some nutrients to my cell and then helping my liver process all the toxins that had built up from various treatments was very effective. So that I wouldn't say I was functional. I could think, I could make phone calls, whereas before I couldn't barely put two words together. I was practically incoherent at
Wow.
times.
Okay.
So it just kind of
So
brought me back to life.
okay. So that was the first thing that again, was kind of out of necessity. You started getting all these IV vitamins.
Right.
And then what was the next thing that you did?
So the next thing that I did was then try more treatments with doing some ozone therapy.
Mm, I love it.
I'm
Gosh,
sure
you're
you're
talking about everything I
familiar.
do in my clinic. So I do
Yeah,
some IV. Oh, did you do IV ozone?
I did IV
Okay.
ozone, I did rectal ozone, I did ozone every way you could think of it.
Okay.
Um, and that was amazing. As you know, ozone treatments are amazing. So that gave me a little bit more life. I
Okay.
added a PEMF mat that I would lay on. So to kind of help with the chronic muscle pain that I was experiencing on a daily basis. So I added that.
And if you don't mind me
And
asking, how often did you do the IV ozone? And I guess did you continue the IV vitamin therapy as well? And you kind of did all
yeah,
this together?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I basically was trying, I was developing a personal health toolbox of various things that were helping build up my resilience. I often got sick. So any bug that came around was a challenge for me. So I stayed on top of IV therapy. I added the ozone. I did the ozone um, probably 4 times a month, so
Okay.
weekly.
About
I mean,
once a
it
week.
was
Yeah.
expensive. You know, all
Yeah.
those therapies
It,
are
they are.
very
Yeah.
expensive.
Hmm.
Um, and then we tried to then treat some of my Lyme because I had all those infections in my body that were still challenging my daily function. Yeah, so but detoxification then became very crucial. I have the MTHFR gene, so I don't detoxify well, which I didn't know back then. And I think that's kind of contributed to some of the cellular blockage, if you will, of treatments being successful. So, um, started to do more detoxification, but gently, started with Epsom salt baths, infrared sauna, and I also got a K1, which is like a vibratory plate that you stand on because I couldn't exercise anymore. My muscles had wasted away. I would just put my feet on that, which would kind of open up the lymphatic valves, which would help me detoxify more effectively.
Now, were you out of the wheelchair at this point, like when you had started the ozone, or were you still in the wheelchair?
I was still in the wheelchair. I really
Okay.
couldn't walk for um, yeah, I couldn't walk
Okay.
basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The more I did, the more seizures I had because I just didn't have enough energy in my cells. With Lyme disease, your mitochondrial, you basically have very little mitochondria. So,
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So you added the ozone, still doing the IV therapy, and then maybe sounds like slowly getting better, or at least you weren't going the other direction.
right.
And then what came after that?
So then I was able during all of this alternative therapy, I was still looking for a doctor that would go through my binders of tests that I had done and get to the root cause because I felt if we could just get to the root cause and we knew Lyme was a part of what was going on, but it wasn't clearly through all the treatments I had, didn't solve anything. So I found a doctor down in the Bay that actually found an MRI, brain MRI, that had been done 4 years prior to where I was at. And we discovered a Chiari malformation, which is where the cerebellum protrudes through the cranial opening and blocks cerebral spinal fluid. So this attributed to my muscles dying, basically, and them being confused, thinking it was ALS when it wasn't.
Hmm.
So that kind of turned things around because then I had brain surgery and that was flowing again. Um, My story is long and convoluted. It's very hard to like package nicely for people to be like, oh, so just it was a nice little, did this, this, and this, and it was
Mhm.
all well. Um, it definitely was a journey,
Okay.
but that was part of it.
Okay. Okay. And then so after that, were you able to start walking and
That was when I became ambulatory again,
okay.
and I didn't need oxygen shortly after that surgery. And then I was able to more aggressively treat the Lyme disease,
Okay.
which was really blocking cellular pathways and function.
Okay. Okay. And so at what point did you get well? I mean, I'm assuming you're good now. I mean, you
Right.
look like you're good
Yeah.
and healthy. I mean, at what point was this just a slow progression, to get well? I mean, how long did that take? And then I guess what other things did you do in those steps to get like completely healed?
Right. So I ended up going to a clinic in Mexico and having some Lyme treatments done, which were hyperthermia and cocktails of antibiotics. Once I got those treatments done and was able to get my Lyme disease to a more functional level, if you will, then I started this journey of what are the key things that are going to get me to where I am today? And that was basically um, taking a look at detoxification and doing that on a regular basis, finding the tools that help me detoxify effectively, nutrient supplementation. So I've never stopped doing IV therapy or hydration. That has been key to my recovery and still is today. And then looking into mindset because I believe that if you believe you're going to get well, you stand a far better chance of getting well. If you're invested in, yes, I'm going to do this, um, the mind controls so much of our cellular energy and our outcome. Um, So, it's finding the tools which kind of became this book, The Vitality Solution. How do you get your vitality
Hmm.
back after you've been through serious health challenges?
Hmm.
And what tools are out there free or, um, you know, for purchase? There are so many. I just feel really passionate that there's so many alternatives out there that we don't talk about.
Hmm.
And people think they have to spend so much money to get from point A to point B, but I don't feel that's really true, you know. So
Okay.
um
Well, talk about if you had. It sounds like your journey was very long, but if you had to highlight, the top things you did that helped you to turn the corner. I mean, was it ozone? Was it, what were some of the, and that may be hard to choose because there was a lot of different things, but if you had to
right.
say, okay, these certain things were game changers, what would you pick?
I would definitely say IV therapy, number one,
Okay.
for sure. Ozone definitely played a key part in that. Um, Detoxification, really honing in on how can I successfully, regularly move toxins out of my body because in this day and age with EMFs and everything else, food, water that we are kind of bombarded with, our bodies don't even if you don't have a genetic mutation like I do, I don't feel we're really detoxifying good enough. I think there's a lot of blockage that we're unaware of. So detoxification was key.
And
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 then
I'm
really
sorry, quick
paying,
quick question on the
yes,
detoxification because you mentioned the sauna, and my listeners, if they have listened to me for any length of time, they know I'm a huge fan of the sauna. I
yes.
have one at my house, and I think it's a great way to detox. And you mentioned that, but other than that, what else did you use to detox?
So ionic foot baths,
Okay.
those and uh, I think they're so effective that sometimes for people like me, you have to be really careful. Like you could really pull out a lot of toxins in a foot bath and then kind of go a little backwards at times. But that's how effective I think they are. Um, but I love my infrared sauna. I love
Okay.
the sauna. I think grounding
Hmm.
is free and it's very effective as well. Getting out
Okay.
in nature and just touching the ground. I think that's very effective and we are so disconnected from the earth now, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like it. Okay. And then you're going to name a few more things. You mentioned the detoxification, and what were some other maybe highlights?
So, looking at mindset,
Hmm.
what are we thinking? What is our subconscious? I didn't even realize in going through all of this that what I was thinking, even if I didn't say it out loud, could be harmful to my cellular energy and my ability to heal. So, I think just taking a look a little bit inward and how are you talking to yourself? Are you kind? Are you kind to yourself or practicing gratitude? My journey was also very faith-based. So without my faith and trust in God, I wouldn't be here.
Hmm.
He guided my path considerably.
Yeah.
So, but it's it really is. I kind of go off on a tangent. And now I'm thinking about all the different things, but yeah, mindset, and then just making sure that your cells have the nutrition that they need. I
Hmm.
think you know plant-based diets, fasting is a great fast track of getting to taking care of a lot of things in a small, I don't want to say it's a small therapy because it's pretty
Hmm.
intense when you do water fasting. But that's something that I've recently discovered that has given me um, kind of taken away layers of dysfunction that would have taken me months.
Hmm.
Just in the generation of stem cells, the autophagy, the cleanup of cellular junk,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
and intermittent fasting is kind of how I started the fasting journey. So, um, but and
Okay.
that's intermittent fasting. Anybody can do that, and it
Sure.
will also help. But
Okay. Okay.
those would be the keys, I think.
Okay. So you got on the other side of this, and so looking back, and I'm assuming, did you continue to see any conventional medical doctors, or did you just kind of give up on that altogether?
Well, I didn't really give up on it. I mean, I believe Western medicine is amazing in a lot of respects. But I think for chronically ill people who are dealing with inflammation and I just don't think they have the tools that can get to the root cause sometimes,
Hmm.
They want to give you pills or, put you through tests, and the body is able to heal itself
Hmm.
when you find the right tools. And I think alternative therapies are far more effective because they work with the body. They're not trying to change anything synthetically or artificially. Um, and so, yeah,
So
that's
looking back, uh, what what diagnosis would you have given yourself? You had the Lyme. I mean, what else? Now that you're on the other end of it, I mean, was there just a
yeah.
whole lot of things that were kind of overlapping? It sounds like you probably had a lot of inflammation and Lyme disease and toxins, and you think it was just all that, or I mean, do you think, oh yeah, I can now say that I had these specific diagnoses?
Well, I think specifically the one anatomically, speaking, the Chiari malformation definitely um, was an attributing factor. I mean, anatomically, there was a blockage.
Okay.
No, uh, Western medicine is the only thing that can fix that. But the other situations, to me, in looking back, I mean, yes, I had Lyme disease, but there's a lot of people that have um, various things, but somehow their immune system is able to handle it.
Hmm.
For me, it just comes down to my immune system was so overrun by toxins and um, various factors that it wasn't able to heal me. It wasn't able to do what it is innately able to do. So I really feel that a lot of things come down to your immune system. When you boost your immune system and you take care of your gut and the gut-brain axis and all of those things, I think that we can deal with a lot of things, whether it's diabetes, whether it's, heart disease or um, various chronic illnesses. We need to build a stronger immune system. We need to take care of inflammation. And I almost feel like it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is, when you take care of your core
Hmm.
being that is responsible for making you healthy,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is really should be the focus,
Okay.
and what things attribute to that.
So, um, so you wrote this book, The Vitality Solution, and again, it's not quite out yet, but
Right.
you do
Yeah.
you basically talk about all these things that you did, that the IV therapy, and just kind of go through each one of those, and
Yes.
describe, kind of how they can benefit people's health.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, basically what the vitality solution is the my key takeaways that
Okay.
the key things that I found helpful in the end for my journey and looking back at everything that I did and mindset, immunity, detox, restoration at a cellular level, and then optimizing that. So once you get to that point, how do we optimize it? And how do we live with vitality and not age, do go through this rapid aging or um it's just really, and that's really what the book is about.
Hmm.
Sorry, I can kind of ramble sometimes, so
No, you're good. So if somebody's listening, because I have a lot of people like myself who, I'm pretty healthy, but I definitely just like to optimize health. And so more from a kind of preventative standpoint, um, having gone through all this and now again being on this side of it, what's your recommendation as far as utilizing IV nutrition, ozone, all these things that you talk about?
yeah, I think we need to listen to our bodies. And I think that it's important to pay attention to what you're eating and what you're drinking and your environment. Um, it's kind of like following the blue zone principles, right? I mean, they live to be 100 because they are practicing certain lifestyle methods, if you will. They eat
Mhm.
plant-based or whole foods. They pay attention to doing things in their community, making connections. So they take care of their mindset on a daily basis. They don't, it's a lifestyle. If you want to be healthy and you want to age well, it's a lifestyle that you create and optimizing that, whether it's IV vitamin therapy, ozone, um, sauna to detoxify, those are the main things that I think help us age well. And then adding some biohacking to that with NAD. We make less NAD as we age. It's directly correlated to the aging of our cells. So I think helping prevent what we can is a great, why not? We have the resources, we have the ability to have healthier cells. So why not choose to do it,
Hmm.
if you can?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to break the bank.
Yeah.
is, you know.
And just again from a preventative standpoint, how often are you now going in to get like ozone or IV nutrition?
So, I do IV nutrition probably a couple times a month because
Oh,
I'm there all the time.
hmm.
I do red light and salt therapy regularly. Those also help optimize mitochondria, energy in the cell. And I detoxify. That's huge.
Hmm.
I really make sure that I detoxify and stay hydrated on a
Hmm.
regular basis. And that there's, you definitely have to be aware and make it a habit, a lifestyle. Um, Otherwise, we forget, we get busy, and life can move very fast sometimes without realizing we've done these things. So it's a lifestyle that, you need to kind of be aware of. And
Well, anything else about the book that you want to throw out there that I did not ask or that you didn't talk about?
not that I could think of, really it's just trying to bring awareness to alternative therapies. Um, and we are starting to do some retreats. We do the Vitality Solution programs at the lounge in El Dorado Hills. And basically it's just taking you through these steps. And we have all the therapies there and optimizing wherever you're at in your health journey, or maybe it's just you're optimizing athletic performance.
Hmm.
Be that simple.
Okay.
But
What's the name of your clinic there?
Ivy Lounge,
And I know you have a website, the vitalitysolutionbook.com. So people
correct.
could pick up an order there. And I believe I also saw it on Amazon. You can pre order it. Looks like it comes
Correct.
out in May. So here pretty shortly, but you can pre order it if people are interested. So, well, very nice. I appreciate you just sharing your story and, talking about all that. And I don't think I have talked much about IV nutrition on my podcast for whatever reason. I have talked about ozone therapy because I am trained in that and I do that and
Yeah.
love ozone therapy. So that's really cool
Yeah, it's amazing.
that you utilize those things. Yeah. So okay.
Definitely.
Well, again, appreciate all that. And as we wrap up here, I always ask my guests if they could give us one health tip that could make us healthier today. What would you say to that?
I would say hydrate. Every
Okay.
cell needs it. And we
Okay.
don't drink enough water. I feel. At least that's what I've come across here. We don't
Mhm.
hydrate well enough.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. Well, I appreciate it. And as always,
Absolutely.
appreciate everyone listening. And we will talk to you next time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to FitRx. I invite you to share this with friends and family. If you would like to contact me, you can visit our website at fitrxwellnessok.com or you can email me at drgreg@fitrxwellnessok.com.